Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Linda.
Here's another episode of Homegrown Family that I'm sure will be riveting. In this one, we're going to give you a marriage tip.
A marriage tip. Very early on in our marriage, we knew right away that we would not use the D word.
Yep. Dyslexia. Doppelganger. Doo-wop.
Let's see how many you can do.
All right.
Oh, now you can't think.
Dormant. Daffodil.
Daffodil.
Delightful. Delicatessen. Delicioso.
Okay.
Divorce.
Divorce. We don't use the word divorce.
I think part of it came down to, even when we were young, just this realization that we wanted a new legacy. I grew up in a home where my parents struggled. I love my parents. I'm very thankful for them. But for some reason, there was a lot of difficulty in their marriage, and they ended up getting divorced. And for me, growing up in the home of a divorced family, loving being with my mother and being with my father, that kind of growing up in two different worlds was something I was hoping I didn't have to offer to my children one day. And so obviously a million things can happen, and we're not
Right.
judging anyone
Again,
who's gone through
safe place here.
a
Safe
divorce
place.
because there's a million factors involved, and it can be very painful and deep wounds and for protection and obviously. But for
Yes.
us, we thought if it's possible, we want to try not to have that in our vocabulary.
And I think the reason is because having that word in a vocabulary an average marriage, because no marriage is perfect, really no marriage is normal, but in an average marriage, to use that word in the vocabulary, it becomes careless. You start throwing it out and even joking about it. This idea of, oh, I'm going to divorce you, and it's a careless use of a word that really is damaging to a relationship, a serious relationship. And we didn't want to be careless with our relationship.
I think there is something about this idea that words have power. I remember just recently reading a study. I think it was in one of those Bo Sanchez books where he talked about somebody who there was a survey done where they wanted to see a difference between here and there, and it was a basketball shot. So it was the idea, if you went out and you practiced a certain amount of time, then there should be an increase in excellence when it came to basketball shots. They did this in a variety of ways, and when the study was done, they did the analysis. For people who did the basketball shot and didn't practice, of course, they didn't improve, and it wasn't very good at all. People who did practice saw an increase, of course, in excellence. And then they had a group that imagined what it would be like if they shot that shot and made that shot. So they only did their practice once a week, but then throughout the remainder of the week, they imagined a certain amount of time every day making the shot, and they found that the statistic was very close to if you had actually practiced. And I've thought about that a lot because there's something about that when we talk about marriage. Words that we speak matter, they're powerful, and what we reflect on, meditate on, and think about matter and are powerful. And so imagine if you practiced and worked on your marriage and also thought of new ways that you could bless your marriage. In that case, then I think you're unstoppable. And so I think in some ways this is us focusing on the word and articulating things that you want in your marriage as opposed to what you don't want.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's right. Yeah, because in the word carelessly using that word divorce, you are focusing on a negative thing, a negative result, instead of saying something positive, focusing on positive.
Well, what's that thing you say all the time in the pre-Cana classes that we do? If you say something
long enough, you start to believe it. And
that's true.
If you are thinking negative thoughts or even speaking negative thoughts to somebody else, a friend or whatever, about your spouse, even though he's not hearing me say it, just because I'm speaking it to someone else, that's very powerful, because eventually you really let those words dig in and embed into your heart. But it's so true with the opposite, with thinking positive thoughts, that thinking romantic thoughts, that those are empowering, and it can help push you towards a positive relationship. And so I guess that's really ultimately why, even though we were so young when we first got married, that we couldn't articulate exactly why we wanted to not use the D word. But really, that is the idea, that we don't want to focus on negative. We don't want to have an out. There's never an out for us. We do, again, understand that there needs to be an out in certain situations, and that's not what we're talking about. But for us, there was no out. We were going to make this work no matter what, and we weren't going to pretend otherwise.
Right. I think that in a lot of relationships, you're going to have the ups and the downs, and there's
Every
this
relationship, you
stereotypical
have to,
honeymoon
yeah.
period where everything's maybe really on cloud nine for a few years, and then the rubber meets the road, and you realize, well, not everything is this kind of emotional elation, and there's
Is
the
it?
well, I mean, the thing, I think, simply put, is for a marriage to thrive, you need to start having a proper vocabulary. And I don't think, as a general rule, saying things that are hurtful or even words like divorce will help a marriage thrive. Unfortunately, we've mentioned numerous times, sometimes you may have to have that conversation. But for those of you out there that are doing fairly well in your marriage, we want to encourage you to start speaking more life into your marriage. And so find ways to bless each other. Find ways to come up with a whole new language, verbiage that can be uplifting and encouraging. And I like that idea, especially if you empower each other, those words can be a reminder when you're going through a difficult time. I travel a lot too, and so knowing that my wife is cheering me on and has over the course of years and years told me how much she loves me and that she's supporting me, that she's with me on times maybe that I travel and I miss her or I'm lonely, and I realize I have so much that I've been given in my relationship, and it's that foundation of speaking beautifully into one another's life that can be such a gift. So say something beautiful to your spouse today. Find an excuse to use a word that's positive, and maybe go out and buy some daffodils. I'm not even sure what a daffodil is.
They're beautiful. They're like cute little flowers that come up in the spring.
Isn't that a dandelion?
No, those are basically weeds. All right.
So be a daffodil, not a dandelion.
I think we had some content in this one.
This is a surprise because normally these kind of videos that we're doing have no point whatsoever.
Which is okay.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching, guys.